Thank you, Cindy. I am unmuted. Everybody hear me? Should
Yes,
I just carry on? Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, all. Yeah, a few weeks ago, the normal "hope you are well" or "how are you" greetings that we get so used to just throwing off the cuff now actually takes a completely new meaning in our lives, as does so much else. So I greet you with a very sincere hope you and your families are safe and well. The world as we knew it, my 70 years of it, your 20 or 18 or whatever it is, 40, it has changed for us all. COVID-19 has already and will continue, even if we get through this, God willing, briefly and quickly, but it will continue to change the way we do things. Just look at this morning, your exercise, what we're doing now, working from home, teaching our children and grandchildren, school, remote learning. It's also a great leveler. Incredible to see how jobs and activities that we took for granted are now so important to us. The refuse collector is more valued at this moment than the banker. And just think about the nurse or that person sitting behind the shop till in the grocery shop, the packer, etc. I mean, I think we've all got to understand this, how it's changed our lives. And so we, like so many thousands of NGOs, and there are thousands of them in this country like ourselves, apart from small business and big business and all other business, NGOs will be affected, and we would need to change and adapt as well. And unfortunately, one of the significant adaptations will be the funding pressures we face. Apart from changing the way we do, we would need to reflect on our funding processes. And I know you all share the similar anxieties. We at Laureus, unfortunately, are not in an endowment-based position. Like the Ford Foundation or some of these big foundations have huge endowments that they only use interest to fund their programs. We, like many NGOs, rely on ongoing corporate funders and fundraising events for our ongoing income, that we can support you, our programs, and the work we do, the YES programs, the educational programs, the value add. And this is all under threat and under pressure at the moment, as those businesses and events, I mean, you could think about the events that we ourselves, the Cape Epic, just to name the big walk in Johannesburg, our balls, our charity balls, and also our business funders. They all under threat themselves. So we face communally this challenge. Our board has been prudent. I'm very happy to say that we were prudent in if I can put it, in the better years, in the good years of funding, and built up a small, and I emphasize a small in the big scheme of things, emergency kitty. We didn't expect this ever, but the emergency is now with us. And we will now use this to see how best we can help our Laureus family, and you're all part of our Laureus family. You are the Laureus family. How we will help our family survive this time. And this is, and I say it emphatically, within our own financial constraints, and we only have so much. We are busy with the survival plan. Our team is working hard as we collect information from our funders, and we interrogate all expenses, and we have to realize that this will affect us all. And we will look at this on a case-by-case basis. And while we deal with the realities of the situation, we can't escape the realities. I can assure you that we have empathy and care for your situation. In most cases, we are not your only funder, and I can only hope that those of you that do have other funders, that they will approach the situation the same way. It seems a little bit far-fetched, and we will get back to you. Our board meets next Wednesday, where final decisions will be made. But I emphasize again that we will treat each project with empathy and care, and our objective is to see that we survive this time. It seems a bit far-fetched almost to say at this stage that with great crisis comes great opportunity. That seems so far away, but you know, have that in the back of your mind. But for now, we need each of us, each of you champions in the projects, you need to think about our roles and our responsibilities to guide the projects and organizations that we can come out of the other side. I think we all have this overwhelming feeling of this thing is so huge. You know, what can I do? And I think I might have shared with you before, and if I have, I apologize, but it's for me quite significant as I grapple with the magnitude of this and my role. And it comes from an American football coach who was obviously willing the individuals in his team to do as much as they can. And he said, I am only one, but I am one. And I can only do that which I can do. But that which I can do, by the grace of God, I will do. So we can only do what we can do. There's nothing much more than that at the moment, and particularly to guide the people that look up to us or look to us for guidance, to adhere to President Ramaphosa's call and the great leadership he has shown to try and curb this and flatten this curve. And as we get more useful, I see today in the street, funny enough, just more cars moving about where it was deathly quiet last week, and we mustn't let the guard down. So with that, I say goodbye to you. And again, the words really mean more than they would have meant 3 weeks ago. I wish you well. Cindy, that is me, and I'm not sure that I should go immediately into introducing Cameron. I see that he has joined. Would you give me an indication?
Yes, Morne, thank you for that. So I'll just, before getting to that, sorry guys, connection was a challenge today. So before introducing Cameron, Laureus Ambassador and South African swimming legend, just to get a sense of who's in the room today, and for Cameron and for Morne to hear, normally, traditionally, we turn on our videos and we get a sense and everyone introduces each other. But just for the purposes of time, if everyone can please just write their name, their organization, and where they're currently based. So if you can just write that in the chat and we can kind of get a sense of who's in the room. And then at this point, I'd like to hand it over to Cameron, who's going to share a little bit about his story and give us some practical tips.
Sorry, Cindy, before Cameron comes on, Cameron, apologize for this. I would like to say hello to Cameron, if I may, myself. Cameron, and just to thank him from Laureus and from Laureus Global for his willingness, like Zanelli, to participate. We really value this, Cameron. I was looking through his Wikipedia just to see the medals he has won, but the medals are so important, and Olympic medals are so important. But what's more important is that this is one of our finest young men, a South African grown Olympic champion who has, we are proud to say, been inducted as a Laureus Ambassador. And I mentioned this issue, this virus is the great leveler, Cameron. And I think you've lived through it, the fittest, strongest man possible in the prime of your health. It just shows you, and thank you again for participating, and we look forward to listening to you.
Can everyone hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Thank you, Morne. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on the call today. Good morning and afternoon, maybe, to everyone in the room. It's lovely to be here, healthy for a while now. Just to let you know my story, which is it's pretty weird, is that obviously we saw this virus in China, and especially for my work as well. I work now at a oil hedge fund, and so obviously we trade demand and supply, and we were watching this thing pretty closely and seeing the severity of it from China, and how easily it was that it was transferring from person to person. And obviously we call it the case fatality rate, so the severity of how dangerous it was. And we saw the rest of the world, which a lot of people started, shall we say, like especially in the US, people were downplaying it, saying that it was just the flu, and it wasn't something to be taken too seriously. And obviously over time we started seeing that it started spreading a lot, and people were still pretty hesitant about it. President Donald Trump even was quite naive and playing it down a lot. And then it was quite ironic because I was one of the first people then, after watching it and trying to be so careful, that I was one of the first people in the UK to actually catch it. And my wife, she went to work on the subway, and she caught it and brought it home and gave it to me. And so we both were suffering for it for it took us about 2.5 weeks to fully get over it. But it was for some reason, it hit us so hard in terms of the first 2-3 days. I had like a small ear infection. I started having this weird dry cough, and it wasn't really too bad. And we had read all the symptoms, and you think to yourself, no man, it can't be corona. It's probably just like some normal sort of flu. And eventually it got to the point where my wife started having severe fever, and we went to the doctor. We called the GP, and we went, and we got there and confirmed that we had corona. And then from then it was about 3-4 days of absolute hell for us, in terms of there wasn't anything that they could give us because it was a viral infection, but we just had to stay at home and drinking a lot of water and a lot of vitamin C. But fevers up to 39.4. It was absolutely crazy in terms of the fever would like cycle, and all you can really take is paracetamol. So you would drink water, take paracetamol, it would start to feel better, and after say 3-4 hours, the fever would start coming back. Like this burning behind your eyes, your chest was burning. We even called the NHS, like the doctors here, about on I think it was a day 7, where my wife was really starting to struggle, and it was actually quite scary, because a lot of them, they just said, just stay at home and self-isolate. There was nothing really that they could do for you. So it's kind of like this half sense of the community is really struggling, to actually deal with the severity and the size of the infections. And, people are also obviously, getting sick, and they also feeling like we started to feel very despondent almost, and scared, because, like we were almost, it felt like we were being ignored. We were very fortunate that we had each other, and we could try and sort of when the one had a peak fever, the other could kind of try and help the other. So it was quite nice. But eventually the fever started wearing off. And after that, then we had this like loss of smell and taste. And just like, we were always constantly tired. So you would feel that you were starting to get better in terms of the fever was gone. And, you know, you started feeling better, like, okay, you know, I must be kind of getting rid of this thing. And then as soon as you would do like any form of, you know, like I'll try and go outside and just walk around the block to try and like see the sun, because you've already been sick now for about 10 days. You'd get halfway around and you'd just be so fatigued. You'd come back, you'd lie down. It was very difficult to even work, you know, to try and sort of like keep your mind busy. So the full like duration, I would feel, for me, took me about 2.5 weeks to fully get over everything. But I mean, I think the craziest thing is that, you know, we are told, and from what the studies are saying before, that this only attacks older people. But as the data is now getting on, we are seeing, for instance, in Italy and in the US, a lot of people are being admitted to hospital, especially in New York now, at even like 35 to 40 years old. So it's not only a older person's, you know, disease that you're fully at risk. It's the data is starting to come out that people that are of a younger age are also quite susceptible to be infected and potentially complications. And as Morne said, I like to believe that whilst I'm not in Olympic condition anymore, I still have a relatively healthy body in terms of I still lead a healthy lifestyle. You know, I still was gymming when before the lockdown, 4 to 5 times a week, eating very healthy. Luckily, you know, from sport, that's taught me a lot of life lessons in terms of maintaining, you know, your body and your mind and being a healthy person. So if that affected me that way without smoking and being, shall we say, unhealthy, I think it's a real, wake-up call to a lot of people. And that was hence also the reason why I took to social media was to try and warn some people, because, you know, it's definitely not a joke. And I really hope people are taking social distancing, you know, seriously, because as Morne said, you know, it's saddening to see that even if you're young and potentially you don't feel that you're at risk, you're putting a lot of other people at risk and being selfish from that terms. So that's my experience so far with Corona.
Thank you, Cameron. Thank you for sharing your story with us. At this time, if anybody has any questions for Cameron, you're welcome to post it in the chat and we can answer, and then Cameron can take those questions. Cameron, is there any like practical tips that you would recommend to be able to do like in your home?
So I think what we've been doing quite a lot is you know, to keep obviously your house, should we say, the virus is not going to crawl under the door and catch you whilst you sleep at night. So, you know, if you're in your home and everything is you know, you shall we say, you need to sanitize obviously as soon if you go out and when you come back in. So what we do, for instance, is when we have to go out to get food, we have hand sanitizer that as soon as we take anything from outside the house, inside the house, or we've been outside to in, as soon as we get in, we wash our hands, we wash whatever we touched. For instance, even like the car door, the mobile phone, absolutely anything, because it's so easy to pick up something in the supermarket that somebody else might have been infected and touched. And then you touch your phone and then it gets onto your phone and then you bring your phone back into the house and you start touching everything else. So it's obviously something that you have to really trying to be careful with. And we, you know, here in the UK, we're also using gloves. People are walking around with masks. So it's definitely quite an adjustment of life. And then I think another super important thing to talk about is also obviously just your mental health, being in the house. And obviously, we know a lot of us are working at home, and I get to the point where I start feeling that my days have amalgamated into one, where it's like, I don't know if it's the weekend or if it's the middle of the week, or there's just sort of, you wake up and you kind of at the computer and you're working, and then, you know, it's all of a sudden it's like 8 o'clock because you don't have to leave and sort of disconnect from being at work and go home. Everything just starts flowing over. So I've also made quite a strict rule where we're fortunate here in the UK, we're allowed to go for an exercise, like a 30-minute walk. So every day at about 6 o'clock, my wife and I will go for a 30-minute walk along the river. We're not allowed to talk about anything about work. We're not allowed to talk about anything about coronavirus. So it's only about family, you know, anything positive, just to try and like keep mentally sane in this period. In good stead.
Thanks, Cameron. I'm seeing another question in the chat. I'm glad that you and your wife feel better. What food did you eat or were you able to cook while you were both sick and in isolation? Loss of appetite must make it difficult to keep up with the nutrients and fluids.
Yes, it was. I lost about 2-3 kilograms during the period because you definitely lose appetite, and you know, you also sort of like, you should be drinking a lot of water, but you don't, especially during fever, and that's one of the things that really helps. So it was quite difficult to try and keep hydrated, but what we did was, we knew that we were feeling obviously so bad. As soon as we had any chance that one of us was feeling quite good, we made a huge pot of soup, and you know, luckily that's got a lot of nutrients in, a lot of liquids, so that was quite easy as well, just to make a lot of soup. We put it in the freezer, and you know, we would just microwave that up whenever we could. And every now and then we have we're fortunate here, we still have like a Deliveroo or Uber Eats, so we would order something like that. But obviously also after a bit of time, all you're looking forward to is like a home cooked meal. You know, you miss when I was young, for instance, you know, your mum used to make me like a chicken soup or Marmite on toast or something like that. So you start missing, you know, having that kind of like real wholesome food feeling. So it was quite tough.
Thank you, Cameron. If there are any more questions at this time, or if you guys think about it throughout our call, you're always welcome to post it here, and then we could always find out from Cameron. So I think at this time, I'd just like to thank our chairman as well as Cameron for coming on the call today and for your time. We really, really appreciate having you guys. And we're going to continue with our call. You're welcome to stay on the call. But you're also, I know you might guys have other things, you're still in recovery process. So yes, if there's anything
so much for having me.
Say to the group.
Thank you guys. Take care. Good luck.
Bye-bye. Great, everyone. So I think